Congratulations on securing the border in a record amount of time. The last administration came and sat where you're sitting for 4 years and told us it couldn't be done. It couldn't be done. The border was just an intractable problem. It would take years to do it. You did it in the space of really 30 days, and now the United States southern border is secure. So thank you for your tremendous work on that. I want to begin, however, with the situation in St. Louis, which I'm sure you're aware of. On Friday afternoon and evening, major storms ripped through the St. Louis area, as well as southeast Missouri. I'm going to put a picture up over my shoulder here. An F3 tornado cut right through North St. Louis. This is what you're seeing here is pretty typical, I'm sad to say, of the damage. We lost 5 people in St. Louis. We lost another 2 in Scott County, which is down in southeast Missouri, there to the south, a couple of hours south of the city. I spent much of the day yesterday just walking these neighborhoods and talking to residents, and this that you're seeing over my shoulder is what these neighborhoods all look like. These are areas that families have lived here. In some cases, I talked to one individual, one gentleman, and he said that his family had been there since his great-grandmother came to that neighborhood in 1919. So it's that kind of a community, and they are totally devastated. Yesterday afternoon, my governor requested an emergency disaster declaration to expedite FEMA funds to help the state just clean up. I mean, just clean up the kind of rubble now that you're seeing behind me. You've been a governor until very recently. You know how important this is. Can we get your help to expedite the consideration of that request? Again, it was just made yesterday. We need it as quickly as possible. Will you help us expedite that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've spoken with your governor and did that day that this devastation happened. And so we've promised and pledged to get that expedited as soon as possible for him so he can have the resources that he needs to respond to his people. And that's one of the failures that FEMA's had in the past, is that people that incur this kind of damage and lose everything, then they sit there for months, sometimes years, and never get the promised critical response that they think or that they believe they should be getting from the federal government. And that's why President Trump believes that this agency needs to be dramatically reformed.
I'm glad to hear you say that, and you're exactly right. We've had the situation in Missouri in years past where we've had individuals who have qualified for FEMA aid, including individual assistance. In some cases, they've been awarded the assistance, and then FEMA has come in and clawed it back, or never paid it out, or never sent teams to help. So to have your commitment to expedite this is tremendous. That will be welcome news to the residents of St. Louis. We also have the state has pending 3 requests for major disaster declarations from earlier storms. We've lost over a dozen people. Well, actually, if you count the folks we lost just on Friday, we've lost almost 20 people now in major storms just in the last 2 months in Missouri. It's been a terrible spring for us. Here again, can I ask for your help? Will you commit to helping for those 3 major disaster declaration requests that are pending? Will you help expedite those, Secretary Noem, and get those in front of the president, get those approved? We are desperate for the assistance in Missouri.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank
you. Make sure the application gets to the White House as soon as possible.
Fantastic. Thank you. And can I also have your commitment that if and when the president approves a major disaster declaration for this storm that just happened on Friday in St. Louis, will you expedite as much as possible FEMA individual assistance for those who qualify for it in the St. Louis area?
Yes.
And I want to tell you just how important that is, because as I toured these streets and walked and talked to the residents, what I heard over and over is many of these folks don't have insurance.
Yeah.
You know, many of these folks, they either got their homes from a family member, or they bought them from a family member, so they don't have a mortgage on the property, and therefore they don't have homeowners insurance. So, as you know, having been a governor, in many instances, FEMA assistance is going to be the only assistance that they're going to get. And I just had a hearing in this committee and our subcommittee, Senator Kim and I, last week, where we talked to major insurance companies who routinely scam people by refusing to pay out the full policy awards that they are due. So I know we're going to be fighting that in Missouri. We've got to have the federal government where there's individual assistance that people qualify for. We've got to have people be able to get that. Otherwise, we're never going to be able to rebuild these neighborhoods. So you just committed, I think, to expediting that. I appreciate that. Thank you for your help in all of this. And then the last thing we'll say is can you commit also to making sure that the FEMA communication with the state and with individuals is open, is clear, is transparent? You referenced the fact that FEMA is notorious for giving bad information, for slow walking residents, for confusing intake forms that nobody knows how to fill out, for not getting back to people. Can you commit to, as we deal with this disaster in St. Louis and others around the state, that under your leadership, FEMA is going to act with expedition, they are going to be clear in their communications, and they're going to follow up and give people the awards that they need if they qualify for it?
Yeah, that's been the biggest challenge of FEMA in the past, is just the delayed response. People are counting on the assistance and it never comes through. And the paperwork is too complicated for an individual many times to complete on their own. They need help and assistance. So that's part of the reforms that the FEMA Review Council will be undertaking. And we've got people that are our frontline responders across the country that are serving on that council. And we'll take your insight as well. But we'll continue to expedite what we can with the framework we have in front of us, but do better diligence than the last administration on how we take care of people.
Fantastic. Everything you said today is going to be very, very welcome news in St. Louis and the rest of Missouri this morning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your service. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Senator Fetterman.
This framing reinforces a broader Republican narrative that strong executive action, not new legislation, was the key difference. The tone quickly turns serious as Hawley details the aftermath of an F3 tornado in St. Louis, which killed 7 people across the region and caused widespread destruction. He emphasizes entire neighborhoods flattened, families living in homes passed down since 1919, nearly 20 storm-related deaths in Missouri in 2 months, many residents lacking homeowners insurance. Hawley urges expedited federal disaster declarations and faster FEMA individual assistance. The DHS Secretary commits to fast-tracking Missouri's emergency disaster requests, pushing applications to the White House quickly, expediting individual FEMA assistance, reforming FEMA's delayed and confusing response system. The Secretary criticizes past FEMA failures, delayed aid, clawbacks of approved assistance, complex paperwork, and aligns with President Donald Trump's push for dramatic reform. This hearing does 2 important things politically. Humanizes the debate. Hawley focuses on real families without insurance who may depend entirely on federal aid. Builds the case for FEMA reform. Instead of arguing against federal assistance, Republicans here are arguing for faster and more efficient federal intervention. It's notable that border politics and disaster relief appear in the same hearing, showing DHS's wide jurisdiction and giving Hawley an opportunity to praise administration border policy, advocate strongly for his home state. The key takeaway: Missouri's recovery now hinges on whether FEMA delivers faster than it has in past disasters.